And welcome to this virtual licensing subcommittee. I'm Councillor John Andrews. I would first like to go over some housekeeping rules for this hearing. This is a public meeting and is being live streamed on YouTube, so please keep the background noise to a minimum and do not make any personal comments about any other party. This is a structured meeting to ensure fairness to all parties, and the chair will give each party the chance to speak. Please only speak when invited to do so by the chair. Please turn off your camera and microphone. Turn on your camera and microphone when invited to speak. Otherwise, please keep your camera and mute your microphone. The chat bar facility is only to be used if anyone has a technical difficulty and not for making comments. Only the Democratic Services Officer will monitor this facility. I can confirm that the subcommittee members have read all of the papers and watched and listened to all the video and audio submissions. You do not need to repeat what is in your submission, but you may amplify the points you have made. If the points you intend to make have already been covered in other representations made at the hearing, you can state that this is the case and that you have nothing further to add. Might I just say to everybody involved that the three councillors that are on the subcommittee this morning have visited the premises and spoke to nobody, but viewed the establishment from the outside and from streets in nearby. I'd like now to do some introductions. Could my fellow committee members introduce themselves? Then I will.
Good morning, I'm Les Fry and I'm representing Dorchester West.
Good morning, my name is Councillor Emma Parker and I represent Puddletown and Lower Winterbourne.
Good morning, my name is Councillor John Andrews and I represent Sherborne East. So I welcome you all to this virtual licensing subcommittee. As we've introduced the councillors and I would like to move to agenda item 1 to elect a chairman for the meeting.
I would like to nominate Councillor John Andrews as the chair of this meeting.
And I will second Councillor Andrews.
Thank you very much. Excellent. I would now like the council officers to introduce themselves, starting with the committee clerk.
Morning, my name's Elaine Tibble. I'm a Senior Democratic Services Officer with Dorset Council.
Thank you very much. The legal representative.
Good morning, I'm Laura Autry. I'm a solicitor with Dorset Council.
Thank you very much, Laura. The licensing team leader.
Good morning, Chair. My name is Aileen Powell and I'm the licensing team leader and the report author.
Very much. I would now ask the parties and the representatives in attendance to introduce themselves. Firstly, the applicant.
Sorry, Chair. Yes, it's Respect Weymouth here and I represent the residents of the group.
Thank you very much. The licensee.
Morning, my name's Martin Rollings. I'm the landlord of the Duke of Cornwall.
Thank you, Martin. Any responsible authorities? I think we've got environmental health.
Good morning. My name's Stephen Ireland. I'm a senior technical officer with environmental health community protection team.
Thank you very much, Stephen.
Good morning, my name is Jane Williams. I'm team leader for environmental health.
Thank you very much, Jane. Right, we'll move on. Any persons who have made representatives at the station who has completed their notice of attendance and stated they wish to speak, I will call you by the list supplied of the notices of attendance that were returned. Sorry, legally, do I have to go through that now, Laura? Make sure the people are there? Yeah?
Yes, Councillor Andrews, just to make sure everybody's here who should be.
Right, so other ones, the other license holder, Christine Hearn. Christine, are you here?
Christine is not here today. I'm representing the Duke of Cornwall.
Okay, thank you, Martin. David Nunn.
Good morning, David Nunn here. I'm just a member of the public.
Okay, thank you, David. Cindy Ellery.
Yes, I'm here, just a member of the public.
Thank you very much. Anne Newman. Hi there, Anne. Simon Lister.
Yes, hello there. I'm a member of the public also and a resident near the harbour.
Okay, thank you very much, Simon. Lynn Mackenzie. No. Thomas de Brincat. And Paul Davis. I know Paul is speaking for Alison, I think.
That's right. Thank you. Yes, member of the public and harbour resident.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that. So we've got everybody here who needs to be here. So now I need to go through some formalities. Do we go into item 2 of the agenda? Do we have any apologies? I don't believe we do.
No, there's no apologies.
Thank you very much, Elaine. Declarations of interest. Councillors, have we any declarations of interest?
No, we don't.
I have no declarations, thank you.
Right. Moving on to item 4, urgent items. Any urgent items? I don't believe any have been identified.
No, Chair, there are no urgent items.
Thank you very much. So moving on to item 5, was the application to review the licensed premises of the Duke of Cornwall, Weymouth. An application has been made to review the premises license for the Duke of Cornwall in Weymouth. The application has been set out in a public consultation and has attracted relevant representations. A licensing subcommittee must consider the application of representatives at this public hearing. So, moving on. So now I'm going to ask the licensing team leader to outline the details of the application, including the details to any withdrawn representations. Thank you. Over to you, Aileen.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to say we've got no withdrawn representations at all. The licences are granted for the life of any premises, and the review process is there to act as a check or balance and enables requests to be made so that the licensing authority can reconsider a licence. Anyone can apply for a review of a premises licence at any time if they have evidence to bring that relates to promoting one or more of the 4 licensing objectives. They can and they are used for a variety of purposes. The statutory guidance chapter on reviews has been included within the report pack, and the process for reviews is set out clearly in that guidance. Various statutory instruments govern the timeframes, the notification requirements and the content of the notices and where this is displayed. The Duke of Cornwall has been licensed under the Licensing Act since 2005 and would have been licensed prior to that under the 1964 Licensing Act. There was a slight hiatus in the licence history in 2016 when a new licence needed to be applied for, and the majority of the conditions currently on the licence were in the operating schedule for that licence. This particular review has been applied for by a group called Respect Weymouth. Officers do have a list of the names and addresses for the 12 members of the group supporting the review, and all the households are in close proximity to the premises. The grounds of review cited in the application are the prevention of public nuisance and the protection of children of harm, and these are 2 of the 4 licensing objectives. The protection of children from harm in this instance relates to the harm caused by the alleged public nuisance to children in nearby residential properties. The subcommittee has received all the supplementary evidence and the submissions. I would like to point out that the Live Music Act 2012 and the Legislative Reform Entertainment Licensing Order 2014 amended the Licensing Act by inserting section 177A. The effect of this is to make any conditions relating to live or recorded music either currently on the licence or so they do not have any effect between 8 o'clock and 2300 unless the subcommittee at a review of the premises amend those conditions to insert a statement that the effects of this section do not apply. That's all I want to say, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Has anybody got any questions for Eileen? Councillors? Any questions?
I have no questions, thank you.
I have no questions, Chair, not at this time.
Thank you, Ben. The applicant, have you any questions for the licensing team leader?
No, thank you, Chair, not at this time.
Right. The licence holder, have you any questions?
Yes, I do have. I have one question.
Yeah.
I have done research into what constitutes the protection of children from harm, and noise nuisance does not come into it. The protection of children from harm, according to the NSPCC, the government website, and Save the Children, is to do with far more sinister things than any noise nuisance. It's to do with more such things as sexual abuse, physical abuse, grooming, etc. It's not a valid reason for a review.
Have we got any response to that question?
Yes, the protection of children from harm, the definition in the guidance, which is what we would apply to when it's a licensing objective, is all laid out in the report.
Can I comment?
If you'd like another question.
It's not a question. It's simply that I have done in-depth research as to what constitutes children from harm. Whatever guidance is being used that says that the children need protection from harm in this instance, I would like to know the source of that guidance. Can I ask what the source of the guidance is?
Yes, of course you can. It's the Section 182 guidance issued by the Home Office, I think, that goes with, that we have to take regard of when we're considering any matter of the Licensing Act.
Sorry, there was a bit of a glitch there. By who? Sorry, Section 182 guidance from who?
The Home Office. So it's the guidance that accompanies the Licensing Act that we have to have regard to. It's mentioned in the Licensing Act.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Responsible parties got any, so environmental health, you got any questions for the licensed team leader?
I have no questions, Chair. Thank you.
I think that's it. Any person who's made any representation, any questions for the licensing team leader? No, thank you very much. I will next ask the applicant to present their case. Over to you, the applicant.
Sorry, Chair. Thank you. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, fine.
I have a report that I'd like to read out, if that's okay. So thank you first. We do understand that the committee has read the grounds for the application and its evidence. So we would like to focus on relevant matters of fact only. Before we do that, though, we think there is a need to make our intentions for this application absolutely clear. We are not trying to close this or any other venue down. We are not trying to drive live music out of the area or the town. The application is not limited to one person or a serial complainer or someone with frivolous or vexatious motivations. And the council has validated this application as relevant. What we are doing as a group is trying to secure the prevention of statutory and public nuisance, particularly around noise, and as a result, ensure that residents and children in noise-sensitive properties are not continually affected by these impacts. As things stand, we believe the licence is not able to support this. So, as part of our presentation, we would like to focus on the following, and if needed, we will refer to evidence. A little bit about the group. We'd like to give a little bit about the background, the nuisance itself, the mandate for this review, our proposed licence conditions, and at the end of our application, the noise management plan considerations that we made.
Thank you.
So the group then, Respect Weymouth, we have covered this in our evidence, and we don't think there's a need to expand on it much further here. Other than we would like to clarify that the application is focused on members of the group who live in noise-sensitive properties only. It does not involve the wider members of the group or community. The reason for this was to ensure that very clear and direct proximity to the licence conditions around noise and statutory nuisance were made. We would also like to bring to the committee's attention the commendation that we have received as a group at a recent licensing hearing for showing a constructive and balanced approach to resolving licensing issues at another venue. A little bit of background then, from the perspective of those affected. We all know and accept there's a solid history of fun and entertainment at this venue, and some residents have enjoyed visiting here for 30 years or more, including myself. But residents that have lived here for 20 years or more have experienced a significant increase in noise escaping from this venue. Over this time, the nature of regulated entertainment in this historic Grade 2 listed building has moved from tapes and background music to jukebox, to acoustic artists, karaoke events, vocalist performers with amplified backing tracks, once or twice a week up to 11 and midnight, and more recently to full bands with live percussion playing beyond statutory nuisance levels during the week and through to 1 AM around the weekends. The escalating impacts have not been considered or assessed, and the balance here has been well and truly lost. Amplification levels here are higher now than they've ever been. They've become intrusive and dominating in the locality, and they can no longer be contained by the poorly soundproof structure of the building. In the past, there has been a focus on reactive licensing enforcement, together with a lack of support for residents who lost faith in the system and stopped complaining. This hasn't helped with where we find ourselves today, although we are pleased to say that things are much better now than they were. Ultimately, this application is about cumulative impact area. It's about now, it's about excessive noise, statutory nuisance, breaches of a noise abatement notice, and the impacts that all this has had on residents in nearby noise-sensitive properties. I'd like to go over a little bit about the inaudible noise condition. This condition has been at the heart of the problem here. It's been relied upon by residents moving into the area who, after getting here, found that it wasn't being enforced or upheld, and then, on inquiring, discovered that it couldn't be enforced because of a ruling in the Court of Appeal. So, as far as we have understood it, the condition was dead, and it appears this view has been held by others too. The condition is this: noise from a licensable activity at the premises will be inaudible at the nearest noise-sensitive premises. However, it now seems clear that this condition defines the standard to prevent statutory nuisance. It is enforceable under the Environmental Protection Act and the criminal law, and there are criminal sanctions for breaches of it, as we have found out. We understand that the inaudible part relates to a subjective noise assessment against background noise outside for a specific area by an officer from Environmental Protection, and this assessment is not determined by noise limits. So, noise in an area that has low background levels is likely to cause a nuisance at lower levels, and vice versa. If the background levels are high, and vice versa if the background levels are high. This is a very relevant point in this hearing, because background levels here in the week are extremely low when compared to those around the weekend, and noise limits that do not consider this difference could enable and condone statutory nuisance where it was once protected. As we've said in the application, this condition provides a level of protection that has been agreed and set. It's being enforced now, so we firmly believe that it should stand, even though it can't be enforced by licensing. We understand that this level of protection could be enhanced in a license if necessary, but certainly not weakened. In order for this or any noise condition to be enforceable under the Licensing Act, to prevent public and statutory nuisance, we understand that noise limits and places of measurement must be provided. And this is what we are now seeking, given the level of statutory nuisance that's been suffered here, and given the enforcement of statutory nuisance alone cannot secure changes to a licence to prevent public or statutory nuisance. Statutory nuisance then, and the noise. What does it feel like? The investigation for statutory nuisance here has been ongoing since July 2021. We've been engaged with Environmental Protection, and a noise kit has been fitted in the home of a noise-sensitive property on 2 occasions, once before the abatement notice and once after. Our evidence in the statutory nuisance noise log, sample recordings, helps to demonstrate the impacts of this. There are around 100 separate recordings showing levels of noise that contributed to this investigation. Of specific note, the evidence summarises that background levels from Sunday to Thursday are very low and regularly at or below 45 decibels. They are higher on Friday and Saturday, and usually around 50 to 55 decibels. Vocalist levels have been so high that songs have been heard word for word in the bedrooms and over home entertainment, excuse me. especially on a Sunday to Thursday. Bass guitars, drums and cymbals have been particularly intrusive. They have prevented sleep and been clearly audible over home entertainment. This noise cannot be masked by normal outside noise because of the different frequencies that they fall in. Escaping noise has also not been masked by passing cars. Fluctuating noise bursts from the opening entrance door can be very loud and intrusive up to 1 o'clock in the morning. And when this venue is compared with an adjacent venue that has a noise management plan and noise limits, the difference here is significant. Respected guidance of the World Health Organization and the Department of the Environment and Rural Affairs for entertainment sector specific research have not been met here, or it seems considered. Recent recordings only last week demonstrate that live music with a full band in the week has been contained around 45 decibels outside of a noise sensitive property. This clearly demonstrates that DEFRA and WHO guidance can be achieved here if there is a will. Whilst things have got better over the last week, recent recordings do also show that low frequency noise has been particularly high and intrusive, and it has exceeded guidance of 60 to 65 decibels outside of a noise sensitive property. All this is included in our evidence and in the recordings. And we would like to discuss this later when the Environmental Health present their representation. So from a resident's perspective then, the statutory nuisance and the noise impacts. Further to the Council's statutory nuisance investigation, our evidence of a questionnaire shows that 12 noise sensitive properties came forward in a noise impact questionnaire. Now these properties are closest to the Duke of Cornwall and those that are most likely to be affected by escaping music. 16 residents within these properties completed the questionnaire. 5 of the 12 homes have children in them, and this evidence demonstrates the impacts being suffered by residents. For example, 14 suffered regular noise impacts at least once a week. 14 were clear that the noise was from this venue. 11 identified that it interfered with home entertainment. 12 identified that they had to close windows and suffer heat and stale air in the peak of summer. 12 identified they had been woken by noise bursts of live music. 12 identified they were unable to get to sleep with live music, and 5 identified that children and grandchildren had been overtired because of disturbed sleep. 5 more also identified that because of this, children found it hard to concentrate with schoolwork. The evidence also demonstrates in the questionnaire how residents feel about the escalating noise problem and the way it has evolved here. We are not happy with the way that live music from this venue has dominated the surroundings and intruded on our rights to privacy and enjoyment of our homes and personal belongings. I said early on that this application wasn't from one person. The mandate for the review in this questionnaire, of the 16 residents that completed the questionnaire, 15 of them in noise sensitive properties wanted formal action to be taken, and they wanted better licence conditions to prevent public nuisance. We note the Council's statement of licensing policy at 418, where it says the Council is aware that the prevention of public nuisance is not narrowly defined in the Act and can include low-level nuisance perhaps affecting a few people living locally, as well as a major disturbance affecting the whole community. It would appear that, given the statutory nuisance and those affected and the mandate for this application, that the test of public nuisance is met. The investigation for statutory nuisance. So I've just given what the impacts have been. The upshot of the Council's investigation is that noise was found to be excessive and the abatement notice was served on the 11th of October. As we have said, the noise monitoring continued after the abatement notice was served. Our evidence shows that excessive noise also continued after delivery of this notice, which we understand was not appealed. We also understand that a prosecution for breach of the abatement notice is now pending. There is no need for us to prove that there is a noise problem here, and there is no need for us to prove that it has been ongoing. The Council has already decided this through its own investigation of statutory nuisance. In our application, we established or proposed a number of conditions for the committee to consider. As we said earlier, to help with the prevention of public and statutory nuisance, given that the enforcement of statutory nuisance only deals reactively. We believe that all conditions are relevant for the prevention of public and statutory nuisance as presented, and if a noise management plan is required, it does appear that some of these could be incorporated within that. We do believe that conditions 1, 2, 3, 4, 7, 8 and 9 should be explicit in the licence. I'd just like to expand on these a little. The inaudible noise condition. This reactive condition sets these standards to be enforced here. It is very live and it is very enforceable, as we have now found out. We are extremely concerned that loss of this condition could weaken the statutory level of protection already offered here, albeit by subjective assessment without limits and targets at the moment. Condition 2, disapplication of the Live Music Act. Given the spread of statutory nuisance here, which has been assessed outside of 2300 to 0800, we do believe this condition is still necessary. Otherwise, all new noise conditions outside of this window will be disapplied. It is foreseeable that this could result in noise that is only managed down after 2300. Condition 3, managing outside disturbances. We believe this is required for all hours, particularly during regulated entertainment. Condition 4, doors and windows being closed during regulated entertainment. Obviously, there's a normal access required, but again, we believe this is required for all hours as doors have been held open. Condition 7, managing the occupant capacity via the fire risk assessment. We do believe this is required to prevent overcrowding, and this will help to reduce noise bursts along with the other measures following overspill into the street for breaks. Condition 8, door supervisors. We do believe this is a requirement for Friday and Saturday especially to help with the management of the door and outside and overcrowding. And condition 9, a noise management plan. Clearly, we believe this is an essential requirement for the ongoing prevention and enforcement of statutory and public nuisance. Finally, our considerations for the noise management plan. We did present a number of noise limit considerations at the end of our application. However, we have since provided evidence in the pack within exploring abated noise and proposed limits, where we have considered the potential impacts of a single 55 decibel noise limit across the whole week. We urge the committee to consider the evidence in this pack, in this area, the exploring abated noise and proposed limits, in some detail. We believe there are considerable risks to residents and the inaudible standard of statutory nuisance if this single limit is set across the week with very differing levels of background noise. We would therefore like to propose the following to for yours and environmental protections consideration on the back of this evidence and on the back of our existing conditions considerations for the noise management plan. We believe there's a need to separate limits out between two distinct periods, between Friday and Saturday. So from Friday to Saturday, we believe that the average weighted limit for A rating could be 50 decibels, and evidence shows that this could be achieved, and that an average C weighted limit for low frequency noise is needed at 60 decibels to manage low frequency noise that is currently exceeding recommended levels. For Sunday to Thursday, those limits, we believe, would condone statutory nuisance. They would actually enable noise to be heard within properties of noise, within the homes of noise sensitive properties. So we believe there's a need to have a slight adjustment for Sunday to Thursday, and that the average A-weighted limit for those times could be in the region of 45 decibels, and that an average C-weighted reading for low frequency noise could be again in the region of 60 decibels. Low frequency noise is particularly intrusive, and as I've said before, normal background noise outside falls within mid to high frequencies, and low frequency noise cannot be masked by this. These limits, we're not stuck by these. They could be tested before being set by environmental protection and adjusted as necessary as part of a noise management plan, as has happened elsewhere. We would also like to propose that internal noise limits could be established for noise monitoring, independent of unenforceable and fluctuating noise outside. This has been the most significant and effective measure of the noise management plan in an adjacent venue. It works, and there is no nuisance now. Finally, if the differences in low background noise aren't considered, there appears to be a real risk that noise that was previously considered to be statutory nuisance around 55 decibels will no longer be considered so. This could leave residents in a worse position than they are in now, and enforcement of statutory nuisance in the future could also be affected. We are unclear if the proposed 55 decibel limit from environmental protection is an interim limit, pending a noise consultant report for the noise management plan, where limits would be determined by that process, and we look forward to seeking some clarity around this when environmental protection's representation is presented. That's it, Chair. Thank you.
Chair, you're on mute.
That was a schoolboy error. Sorry. Any questions for the applicants from councillors?
None for me at the moment, thank you.
Councillor Barker?
No, any questions that I've had have actually been covered. Thank you.
Any questions from the licensing team leader?
No, thank you, Chair.
And the responsible party, so the licensee, any questions?
Not questions as such, but I would like to address points that have just been made.
You can do that when you come to your representation.
That's fine.
Martin.
Yeah.
Okay. This is just questions. Responsible parties, have you got any questions?
There's nothing for environmental protection. Thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you very much. Now I'll ask now the responsible bodies to speak. So the environmental protection team, you have something to say to us?
We haven't got much more to add other than our representation. I don't think we should be in the market of over repeating, but basically it's definitely not environmental health's intention to close licensed premises down. We always try to work with them to the nth degree. We've had a lot of success in Weymouth and throughout our district with that. So that's the first point that I do want to make. The other one was that myself and a licensing officer introduced ourselves. We called in May to the Duke of Cornwall. We discussed the previous complaint history with both licensees. We said we wanted to start with a blank sheet of paper. It was as simple as that. We understood that Martin's intentions to have a live music venue, which is good, but it had to be controlled. We basically went through our enforcement procedure, etc., how it worked, and letters go out, etc. But we are totally in the middle. We are totally impartial, and we only act on evidence. Any decision that's made, it's contrary to popular belief. It's not my decision. it's at least 2 officers. Major decisions are made by 3 officers. I can assure you that. That's what that's just what I wanted to mention at that time. So yeah, that's great. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Stephen. Any questions from councillors to Stephen?
No, not at this time, thank you.
Ms. Parker.
I just have one. On your representation, you've got the supplementary information from community protection.
Yeah.
You've got a list underneath that. Is that something that you would expect normally to find attached to a licence?
Yes, I think we would, Councillor Parker. Yeah, I think we would.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Licensing team leader, any questions for the environmental protection team?
No, thank you, Chair.
The applicant, I do think you've got something. Respect Weymouth.
Hi, yeah, thank you, Chair. Stephen, could I just ask a few questions, please, about
absolutely, yeah,
about the proposals that have been put in the representation, and one in particular around the 55 decibel limit. We still are unclear, given that the proposal is to have a noise management plan and a consultant look at that noise management plan, which we would assume would include limits being produced by a consultant. Which we're struggling to understand what the relevance of the 55 decibels is. Is that an interim? Is it an interim target, or is it?
So basically, yeah, I can see exactly where you're coming from now, and taking into consideration the noise monitoring we've carried out, regarding not only these premises but other premises in the vicinity as well. So yeah, it is basically a guide, and we will be environmental health, community protection. We will be guided on the committee, the decision that the committee make, the outcome. However, if they making recommendations regarding a noise management plan, as you're suggesting, then assessments will be made at that time. Will be ongoing with the premises. So you quite rightly make the assessment that Sunday to Thursday the background noise level is less, and on Friday and Saturday it's greater. So yes, adjustments will be made, and the 55 dB is definitely not set in stone. I can assure you of that.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, just 1 minute, Chair. I just need to flick through some notes.
Yeah.
We've worked with an adjacent licensee, Stephen, with a noise management plan, and that's been extremely successful. And one of the most significant areas that has produced that success has been the provision of internal limits for use by the licensee only to establish what the targets are outside. And that helps them in a lot of ways, because it means they don't have to continually go outside to measure limits. It means that they can measure limits at source without being influenced by fluctuating noise which may be louder. There are lots of benefits of this, and there is no doubt that it has made life easier for that particular licensee, and it has achieved targets outside independent of unenforceable background noise. Could you see that internal limits might be a consideration for a noise management plan in this circumstance?
The basic answer to your question is yes. However, the premises that you are relating to are totally different. To be fair, one of the things that I have noticed when I've visited the Duke of Cornwall, that the type of music and the levels that Martin wants to achieve, I feel that those premises are unsuitable for the noise levels. The premises that you are referring to, the music, the makeup of the music are totally different. The clientele are different, etc. But yeah, the answer to the question is yes. Basically, there is no reason why we can't work on similar levels that we've worked with previously. It's I agree with you. It's definitely worked. It's been a massive success. To be fair, inputted from all parties.
Thank you. Just one more question, Chair, if that's okay.
Yes, fine.
Something that is a real concern for us, Stephen, is the standard of protection given to residents from statutory nuisance is a subjective inaudible assessment. And if we provide, if the committee decides that noise limits are appropriate to help prevent statutory nuisance and public nuisance, we are really concerned that somebody in a noise sensitive property could actually be faced with a conflicting standard of protection from two different venues. So, for example, one venue, we might be saying that we are happy for noise to be heard in outside at 45 decibels, and then for the other venue, we're happy to be for noise to be heard outside at 55 decibels. Well, the difference of that 10 decibels is to a human ear is that's twice as loud.
Yeah.
So if I, for example, are sitting in a bedroom at night at 11 o'clock, and I have conflicting standards of what's acceptable or not, that seems to put everybody in a really difficult position, not only from an enforcement perspective and the future of enforcement for statutory nuisance, which will have conflicting standards, but also residents won't know what the line in the sand is. They won't understand what applies. And our view is that a limit is appropriate for a person in a noise sensitive property. That should be uniform, whatever that is, based on the background levels and the surroundings at the time, as determined by the subjective assessment. But the noise that comes out of a premises is the responsibility of the licensee. And if the levels can't be achieved, then adjustments need to be made, either in terms of soundproofing or adjusting noise volumes or adjusting amplification.
Yeah.
Do you support that? Can you see that?
Yeah. Well, a noise management plan is never a finished article from our experience, and it can be added to, it can be adjusted as we go, along the road. So yeah, you've put a lot in there, Nigel, into your questions. A lot of it is very technical regarding decibels that a lot of people won't fully understand, to be fair. So it is very, very difficult. You're talking on levels of from a noise consultant now, to be fair, but yeah, there is no reason why we can't make individual assessments at any particular time and discuss with the licensee regarding what goes in the noise management plan to protect the local residents.
Okay, thank you, Stephen. Thank you, Chair. I think that's it for now.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Jane Williams, you had your hand up. I know you've taken it down now, but I just wondered if you've got anything you want to say.
Sorry, yes, I think my colleague covered it, to be fair.
Right.
It was about doing an internal noise limit in the licensee's premises. If the licensee chooses to put lots of different insulation type barriers, etc., into the property to prevent noise escape, then to take an internal measurement would not be reflective of what was being received by residents in the area.
Okay. Okay, thanks very much, Jane. Right, we'll move on to the person, the licensee, Mr. Rollins. Have you got any questions for environmental protection?
Yes, I do. My first one would be, I'd like to ask, what is the legal limit in law for decibels at any property?
To answer your question, Martin, in law, there isn't one. The Environmental Protection
That's
Act,
all I needed to know. No, you've already told me that.
The Environmental Protection Act doesn't state any decibel limits. It is down to an assessment at that time.
Yeah, that's fine.
It's
okay.
a subjective assessment. It is
subjective, right? That's exactly the word I was going to use. So subjective could be otherwise interpreted as a matter of opinion. Is that not correct?
It's a professional opinion. Yeah,
a professional opinion, but nevertheless an opinion. So
absolutely.
Yeah. So the noise abatement order that was placed upon us, in my opinion, was based on a matter of opinion. Okay. Anyway, that's just one point. You've also said that there is no longer any nuisance in an adjacent venue, and you've been part of the noise management plan at that venue. I absolutely disagree with that, and so do people that have come into this pub who live at the rear of that adjacent venue. I believe I know which venue you're talking about.
Okay.
Sorry, can I finish, please? They say that I believe that any noise reduction insofar as sound insulation, etc., has been done at the end of the property, which directly affects, I will call him Respect Weymouth for the matter of this, for the purposes of this meeting, but at that end of the property, that's where the noise insulation has been concentrated on. So I accept that maybe at that end of the property, there's been an improvement. From what I hear from the other end, which hasn't been complained about, that people are going through hell. Anyway, that's beside the point as well. That's just one point I'd like to make.
Martin, can I just ask you to concentrate on questions rather than comments, please? Thank you.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Another question I have is, how much time have you spent in the company of the chairman of Respect Weymouth, Stephen? That's a direct question to you. A rough estimate in hours, minutes, days, whatever.
That's a very, very difficult.
I'm only asking for an estimate. I'm not asking for
I couldn't even.
Sorry. What's the relevance of that question?
The relevance is that anyone that's read my my statements will see that I am of the opinion and the belief that Stephen Ireland has been biased in favour of Respect Weymouth from the very, very outset of this process. And I believe that it is relevant to ask how much time they've spent in each other's company. I, for one, have spent approximately 15 minutes in the company of the chairman of Respect Weymouth, and approximately the same in the company of Stephen Ireland. So I'm just wondering how much time they've spent together.
I quite take the integrity of our officers is second to none, and that's a disrespectful comment to say.
I don't think. No, I'm not. It's not a comment.
No, it is. No, it is.
It's a question.
I'm not having it. That isn't a respectful question. What you are insinuating is not right. So I ask you to withdraw that comment.
I refuse to withdraw that comment. I've stated it clearly. Anyone who's read my statements will have read. Yeah, well, anyone who's read them knows my opinion. And to say that I'm not entitled to my opinion, I believe is
You're
wrong.
entitled to your opinion. We've read your reports. We asked you not to repeat what you had in your reports because we've all read them.
Other people have done nothing but repeat.
Have you got any other questions?
Let me refer to my notes.
Can I just answer Martin's first question?
You carry
Okay.
on,
I don't feel this is the stage to discuss other licensed premises. We're here to discuss the Duke of Cornwall's premises, Chair. If that's okay with yourself, it's not. I don't think it's the correct stage.
Can I comment on that, please? Respect Weymouth have been commenting on other venues throughout what they were just saying a minute ago, and no one pulled them up on it.
Yes,
I believe I should be entitled to the same.
You are, Martin. No problem with that.
Thank you. Anyway, my main question is what, like I've already said, what is the actual decibel limit, which Stephen Ireland seems to have said is a subjective thing, which I totally agree with. Let's see if I've got my notes here. Oh, yes, Stephen, why did you fail to respond to my invitation for you to come here and not only discuss, but to see the measures that I've taken to contain noise levels within the building, as is supported by the email, which I included with one of my previous statements.
Okay, so if I can recollect, after the service of the abatement notice, we had a telephone conversation. You said you were carrying out noise assessment. You said you'd order a decibel meter, and you were carrying out noise assessments. And I said I welcomed that, and I thought it was a good idea, etc. As far as I can recollect, I have not had an invite from yourself to come to your premises to
I've got
speak
an
to you about
email.
it.
I'm sorry, but I did include the email, a print of the email that I sent you, inviting you specifically, and also
a date and time. Martin, have you got?
I've submitted this. I've submitted this with my statement. Okay. It has been received by the licensing department.
If I have missed
the date and the time is on there.
If I have missed that, Martin, I apologise. I don't think I have missed it. I've been to Weymouth. I come to Weymouth 2 or 3 times a week because of my duties. I would not have turned your offer down. Trust me, I would not have turned your offer down.
But I think the fact is that you did. The fact is that you failed to respond, and you failed to even respond to my invitation to come and discuss the matter with me. I've sent proof of this. It's not a grey area. Anyone referring back to my previous statements can see it in black and white.
Okay,
I printed the email.
Thank you very much. We understand. Right.
It just seems that
we understand. Thank you. Any more questions? Any more questions for Mr. Ireland? Questions? No. We'll move on. So we'll move on to the licensee who's got to. But before we do that, I'm going to adjourn for a 5-minute break because I need one, just to go to the bathroom. So we're going to adjourn for, I'm going to say till 11 o'clock when we'll come back live online. So Mr. Kippax, can you put up a adjourn for 5 minutes or adjourn till 11 o'clock notice for us? Okay. Thank you very much. Right, does anybody that has made representations, and I know we've heard the licensee, want to ask any questions on environmental protection and health? I'll take that as a no. Thank you. So I'm now going to ask the licensee to put his representation. Bearing in mind, Martin, we have read your representation, but I know you'll want to summarise or amplify some of your points. So if you'd like to go ahead, that'd be great.
Right, thank you. First of all, I'd like to respond to Respect Weymouth's latest written statement, which I haven't had the chance to do until now. So I have a short response to that. Which is that I have very little to say about this latest statement, other than it is simply a predictable, repetitive collection of misinformation and lies, just like his previous ones. There's nothing in it that has any credibility, in my view. I refuse to get bogged down by addressing each laboured and invalid point. I'm astounded by the sheer amount of time and effort he is willing to dedicate to this vindictive attack upon us. He's clearly obsessed. We have a business to run. We don't have the luxury of unlimited spare time to dedicate to defending ourselves against this unjustified, vexatious attack. I believe that Respect Weymouth's words could only be taken on face value by a very gullible person. I, for one, can see him for the malicious, deluded narcissist he clearly is. Given the massive support in our favour,
can I ask you to respect people and not comment in that way, because I don't think that's necessary in this hearing.
Chair, this is a group. It is Respect Weymouth. It is a group.
It is a group.
That has not been substantiated, in my opinion, by the lack of names being put forward. There seems to be, even in this meeting, there seems to be bias in favour of Respect Weymouth, as far as I can tell. There has been they have not validated themselves. Their chairman has refused to reveal his identity.
Chair, I don't believe this should be. This is an attack on Respect Weymouth. We need to hear questions and facts about this situation.
Well, I was interrupted whilst reading out my statement. Can I continue with my statement, please? And this is my opinion. If I say that I have an opinion about someone, am I not allowed to air that opinion? People are allowed to disagree with me as much as they like.
But calling people narcissists is not what I would expect of any hearing. So
I'm sure that you're far more used to hearings than I am. This is the first one I've ever been involved in. All I'm doing is giving my. If we're going to respect each other, then maybe Respect Weymouth should not have lied about me, which they undoubtedly have repeatedly. So I've been treated with an absolute lack of respect by Respect Weymouth. And what I'm reading out is simply my opinion. I'm not asking anyone to agree with it. It is just my opinion and nothing more. May I continue?
Continue.
Given the massive support in our favour and almost total lack of it for Respect Weymouth, I believe the fact that he is still clinging on to the pretence that Respect Weymouth is a legitimate entity clearly indicates, right, I'm going to use the word, his delusional tendencies. There has been an absolute lack of any evidence that Respect Weymouth is anything more than an individual. I challenge anyone to back up the fact that there's more than one person here. No one has put their name forward. The only person that has actually put their name forward in any form of support for Respect Weymouth is Stephen Ireland. And that includes the chairman, who was speaking at length earlier. He will not put his name to it. Why would anyone withhold their identity if they have a true and valid case? Anyway, I have a further statement. This is my statement for the licence review hearing. Right, I believe I've already clearly shown in previous statements that this review is an unjustified waste of time and taxpayers' money and is a complete travesty. It's been brought about as a result of a vexatious and personal attack upon us by an individual who from the start has not had the substance to even put his name to it. He calls himself Respect Weymouth. I refuse to acknowledge Respect Weymouth as a legitimate entity on the grounds that no member has openly revealed their identity at any time. Respect Weymouth is, in my opinion, an individual, and I'm more than willing to be proved wrong on that point with evidence or proof, names of people. The fact is that his name is well known to me, the name of this individual, and numerous members of Dorset Council, although we're obliged not to mention his name. The situation is ludicrous and makes a mockery of the review system. He is an individual, not a group. I stand to be corrected by anyone who comes forward with proof that that is not the case. That's unless he would like to prove otherwise by naming the members of his group. To this day, he's been granted the privilege of anonymity on the false grounds that he fears intimidation and retribution from us, which is slanderous and unfounded. This has been upheld by Dorset Council. I have no criminal record. Christine has no criminal record. There is no justified and reasonable grounds for anonymity, as is a requirement. He has listed the protection of children from harm as a reason for his application. This has also been upheld by Dorset Council, who by doing so have facilitated Respect Weymouth's slander and defamation of our character. We've suffered immeasurably because of this. The licensing department has displayed public notices in our windows showing this as grounds for this application. The implications of such grounds are surely obvious to anyone and imply far more sinister things than a noise issue. In what way was this seen as acceptable by Dorset Council? Now, I was told earlier by Aileen Powell that she got her guidance from, what was it she said? I've got it on a note here, section 1, whatever it was. Right, Christine has been upstairs studying that, and at no point is there anything about noise nuisance mentioned. It is unaccompanied children, prohibited from premises, the sale of alcohol to children, blah, blah, blah. There is nothing to do with noise. So I'm of the opinion that to put the protection of children from harm in our windows as a cause for this review is an absolute defamation of character, which has been facilitated by Dorset Council. I've been told that I'm not even allowed to mention the name of the person today in this meeting, and yet he's allowed to imply terrible things about us. If I refer to Respect Weymouth as if I'm referring to an individual, it is because that's exactly what I am doing. How can Respect Weymouth be seen as a legitimate entity if their chairman will not so much as make their name public? What does he have to hide? Despite being given every opportunity, Respect Weymouth has failed to provide, to prove that he is anything more than a vexatious individual, acting more out of personal resentment than for any justifiable reason. How can this review have gone ahead without a legitimate applicant? I invite Respect Weymouth to make his name publicly known or withdraw his application on the grounds that his anonymity has been falsely granted, which it clearly has. Surely any credibility this individual may have once had has been completely crushed by his consistent failure to identify himself and the fact that he has managed to gather less than 3% of supportive emails compared to our 97%. A total of only 4 emails of support compared with 193 in support of the Duke of Cornwall. He should be truly embarrassed by this almost total lack of support, which is, after all, Dorset Council's chosen method of gathering public opinion. Our own online petition has gathered in excess of 3,000 signatures from people supporting the view that we should be left to carry on with an unmodified licence. From the start, we have been treated like criminals and put at every disadvantage possible, both by Stephen Ireland and by the licensing department of Dorset Council. There's been an overwhelming bias and negativity towards us. This has been consistent and continues to be the case. It would seem even in this meeting. Respect Weymouth's motives clearly have less to do with any noise nuisance than with his overinflated ego and delusions of self-importance. He has applied for this review simply because we refuse to be bullied by him. It really is as simple as that. If not, why has he singled us out for a review of our licence and no other venue? There are clearly far more problematic venues in the area. Unlike us, it seems that some other venues would rather be bullied than stand up for themselves and risk being put through the same hell that we are currently having to endure. Dorset Council really should do more research into the background of anyone applying for a licence review before deciding to put it into action. Respect Weymouth has made a string of complaints and acted against other venues in the area in the recent past. He's been the anonymous leader of at least one other so-called group. This is common knowledge. As far as I'm aware, these previous groups no longer exist, and I'm sure that after this review, the name Respect Weymouth Action Group will be dropped, as its credibility rating will be 0, and already is amongst a lot of people. I suspect he will have to think of a new name for his next fictional action group. The fact that Dorset Council have failed to see this individual for the malicious crusader he is should be a source of shame and embarrassment to them. This unfounded and false application has been facilitated by Stephen Ireland of Environmental Health, who seems to be Respect Weymouth's only ally and, ironically, is the only person to have put his name forward in support of this application. This must surely be to the detriment of his standing and reputation. Both Respect Weymouth and Stephen Ireland have repeatedly lied throughout their statements, and the licensing team have slandered us in their public notices by approving the protection of children from harm as grounds for this review. They have attempted to stop us from gathering public support when Catherine Miller openly discouraged us from starting our online petition, which in the end gathered over 3,000 signatures. We would like to thank everyone who's shown their support. It's truly appreciated. Anonymity was granted to the applicant on the false grounds that he feared intimidation and retribution from us. This is another slander, and again, approved by the licensing department. He's used the same false grounds for anonymity in acting against other licensees, despite the lack of supportive evidence. This has been approved by Dorset Council on each occasion. We have suffered massively because of this review in terms of stress, lack of sleep, slander, and defamation of character. Dorset Council are clearly guilty of malpractice, and we're preparing to take legal action against them. We've already lodged a formal complaint. Anyone with a reasonable amount of common sense and in possession of the facts could see that we're the victims of injustice here, and any alleged noise nuisance has been more than adequately redressed by the injustice we've already suffered. We've offered to take part in mediation, as was put forward by Weymouth Town Council several weeks ago, but to date we've heard nothing. We have taken numerous measures to abate this alleged noise nuisance, yet Stephen Ireland has shown no interest and has not responded to my invitations for him to come and see and discuss these measures, which he just denied in this meeting, although I have already submitted proof. He seems to prefer to make excessive demands upon us while simultaneously threatening us with legal action. If implemented, these measures will undoubtedly result in us closing our doors permanently. We can only conclude that Stephen Ireland must stand to benefit in some way from the possibility of us either losing our licence or having restrictions placed upon it. He has shown us no evidence of any noise monitoring that he has allegedly carried out, which surely would have been appropriate given the circumstances. I believe there's only one justifiable outcome to this review application. It is that we should be allowed to carry on running the Duke of Cornwall in the professional and considerate way that we always have, and that our licence should remain unmodified. Any further noise complaints from Respect Weymouth or anyone associated with him should be carefully scrutinised before being put into action. We ask you to make the right decision for the good of Weymouth and dismiss this review in its entirety. I also reiterate my call for Respect Weymouth to face legal action on the grounds that he has made a false statement, the possibility of which is made perfectly clear in bold type within the review application form. Thank you.
Thank you, Martin. Appreciate that. Right, I'm going to ask for questions from councillors.
Yeah, I've got a few. We've heard a tirade of personal opinion against Respect Weymouth and the environmental staff. Can we please have some answers to the questions and our concerns about the noise emanating from the Duke of Cornwall, please, Martin? And what is your intention to do anything about with the noise?
Right, what was your specific question? The first one you said, can we have answers to the questions? Which specific question are you referring to?
You've not answered any of the allegations at all.
And no one's asked me a
noise,
direct question.
Well, what are
okay.
you doing about the noise, the allegations of noise emanating from the Duke of Cornwall?
Okay, I'll tell you what I've already submitted. I will repeat myself, even though it's been stated earlier in this meeting that we shouldn't be repeating ourselves, but you're asking me to, so I will. I've made several measures to contain noise, which include fixing of all doors, which previously didn't self-close. They now self-close. During any live performance, the door stays are removed, so it's not possible to prop a door open unless you either stand in front of it or put a chair in front of it. I've put signage up in the pub saying, will all live performers please keep their volume reasonable. All windows, as I've previously stated, and Respect Weymouth still brings it up, our windows do not open. So for him to keep repeating that we must keep our windows closed is an invalid point. Anyway, I've done that. I've emailed and sent messages to live performers informing them what the situation is and that I would really appreciate them keeping their volume levels down. I've bought sound monitoring equipment. I take regular walks around the block with this sound monitor equipment to check levels. On numerous occasions, other venues are louder than us. I've sent a list of measures I've taken to Stephen Ireland and invited him to come here and discuss these measures and to witness them, which he has failed to do, which I was just asking him about 5 minutes ago. So does that answer your question?
You said that he had failed to answer your invitations in your previous thing. How many invitations have you sent him? Because earlier you said it was one.
Two. All right, on the phone, we had a long phone call after I received the first letter saying that there'd been noise complaints. I spoke to him for about half an hour and suggested that he could come and give us advice or see what we have done to try and abate any noise, and the email that I sent him, which he failed to respond to.
So this hearing is about the noise emanating from the Duke of Cornwall. That's the nutshell of what we're dealing with here. Do you understand that?
Yeah, I do understand that.
Right,
but
okay, that's fine. Noise
right, you can interrupt me as much as you like.
Sorry, go on, you wanted to say?
I was going to say, but surely this meeting is to facilitate me being able to give my side of the story as well, isn't it? It's not just about me sitting here being told off. I don't think
nobody's being told off. Nobody is being told off. We're here to investigate the issue of noise emanating from the Duke of Cornwall. That's what we're here to look at. Now,
well, it's a license review, isn't it? It's not literally about investigating the noise from the Duke of Cornwall. It's a license review, which should take into account all sides of all stories, and which also has mentioned the protection of children from harm.
And that's where it's going. Noise can be very harmful to all people, whether you're a neighbour.
Definitions of such things.
Sorry?
There are definitions of such things. Protection of children from harm does not include noise nuisance. It includes sexual abuse. It includes grooming, physical abuse, mental abuse. It includes all sorts of sinister things. It does not include noise nuisance. And I challenge anyone to read out anything that says that it does.
I accept the statements you do, but noise can be harmful to children and will be harmful to children at a certain level. It's harmful
not according to all definitions that I've read online from the NSPCC, the government website, Save the Children, etc. Noise is not mentioned in any of their definitions of the harm caused to children or the protection of children from harm. So what you're saying is wrong. I'm sorry, but you're incorrect in what you're saying. It's not to do with noise, and the inclusion of the protection of children from harm in a notice that is publicly displayed in our windows is an absolute breach of regulations, and it is slanderous, and it is defamation of character, and it has been facilitated by the licensing department of Dorset Council.
Martin, I find your style so combative in relation to this hearing. We're trying to get to the bottom and having a license review. I find your answers are unhelpful and your style is unhelpful to this meeting.
Right. Well, I'm sorry that you have that opinion, but I am here to say my part of the story. And if it conflicts with what other people want to hear, then well, I don't think I owe anyone an apology for that. I'm just giving my side of the story here. Mr. Councillor John Andrews stated earlier that officers that working on behalf of Dorset Council are they're above their integrity is unquestionable. Well, no one's integrity is unquestionable. So, I reserve the right to question people's integrity if I think it needs to be questioned, which I do.
No further questions at this moment, Chair.
Councillor Parker.
Thank you, Chair. I just have a couple of questions. Martin, can I ask how long you've been in the pub trade for?
Since the 30th of September 2020.
Okay, thank you.
And it depends that is a question that I could give two answers to. I have been a musician performing in pubs all my life. So as a landlord, yeah, a year and 3-4 months, whatever. This is my first pub. Your first but I've been performing in this pub as a musician since not the last owners of it, but the previous ones. Trish, who was the landlady several years ago, I've been performing in this pub for 8 years, both as a soloist and in bands. Nothing has changed here.
So the pub's always had that sort of vibe about it, as in have bands and in the pubs.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, yeah.
What's the?
I've played here under those circumstances.
Okay, thank you, thank you. What's the capacity of the premises?
Well, the specific capacity, I don't have that information off the top of my head. It's a very small pub, though.
Yeah. You don't know roughly, which would include sort of like your staff and band members as well as public?
No, not off the top of my head. No, that's information that I could go and get, but obviously not in the process of this meeting.
I'm just going to pick a ballpark figure because obviously I've seen the premises from the outside, obviously. So just say for argument's sake that you had a capacity of 80 people, that included say your staff and your and obviously your band that you had there on the evening as well. How would that be monitored? How would you be aware of the fact that you had the right amount of people in there and you weren't overcrowded?
We use common sense.
Okay.
I mean, that surely is the probably the best method to use, I would think.
Okay, that's fine. Another thing, with regards to the noise, have you actually been contacted directly by any nearby residents in your time as the landlord? Anybody come to you directly with
yes, I have by one person.
Just one.
Yeah, by one person, and that person is the person whose name shall not be uttered at this meeting. Okay. The chairman of Respect Weymouth.
Okay, nobody else has ever come to you with
no. Well, actually, two people have approached us talking about noise complaints, and ironically, Respect Weymouth were talking about the nearest noise-sensitive property. There should be no noise audible at it. Well, they have actually come to us and said, we completely support you. We have no problem with any noise that you may be producing. And that is a fact. And I haven't asked them to step forward, but they have done that. They live directly opposite.
Okay.
And also the Respect Weymouth's closest neighbours have also approached us, wanting us to know that they have nothing to do with any noise complaints and that they wished us well.
Okay, thank you. And
no one else has complained.
When you've got bands playing in there and stuff, have you ever got to a stage where you thought, well, actually it is getting a bit loud, I need to sort of
I've had words with bands. I've had words with people. I've actually said to people on occasions, you know, you won't, if you don't turn down, you won't be getting another gig, or I'll pull the plug on you. It's very rare that I've had to be that extreme, but yeah, I've had words with people about their volume before.
Okay.
I'm not saying that you know, that it's been silent outside. I mean, I think it's unreasonable to expect silence outside, and venues that host live music, music will escape. I mean, if we were sitting in complete silence in this pub on a Saturday night, we would hear the music coming from several venues from several directions.
Thank you. You've also touched on about the noise management plan that you've put that we should only consent to any such noise management plan if required to do so. Who would you expect that requirement from? Who would you take heed on from that?
Well, if I was required and it was a legal requirement, then I would have no choice but to take part in it. However, if it's not a legal requirement upon us, then we have a lot to do in running this establishment. If all the restrictions, etc., that have been proposed by Respect Weymouth and Stephen Island are imposed upon us, we will be closing our doors. It's as simple as that. We have enough to do. It's not a 5-minute a day job running a pub.
No,
it's a full-time job.
I'm fully aware what running a pub's like.
Right, okay.
Just another thing. I just want this for a bit of a food for thought for you. Really, it's not really a question, but something that you just might want to take away, because I am mindful that you don't have door staff. Of course, it's not a requirement to yourself or anything, but obviously some venues do have them there, you know, for a safety reason. Again, it's somebody that can monitor your numbers coming in if you think you're going to have a busy night. There's just one thing that I just want to touch on, just because it is something that I did witness, is the evening that I did come down, I did witness one person at least leave the premises with a drink and walk up the street with it. So I just want to be mindful.
Right, well, I will address that. Yes, that happens on rare occasions, but we have a strict policy.
I see that in your representation.
Yeah.
Which I just want
if someone has done that, it's not an uncommon thing for someone to steal a glass or to sneak out with their drink. I mean, it happens, but it's rare, and we will chase them down the street if we see them doing it. If people start drinking outside, I will personally go outside and say, sorry, but glasses aren't allowed beyond the front door.
I just think I know what it's like to be in a very busy pub and get caught up behind the bar. You know, like I say, you know, it's a full-time job. You can't have your eyes anywhere. I'm just thinking with a pub potentially in a town as vibrant as Weymouth is, that potentially having somebody on the door at least would be able to sort of like ease that pressure of you know, sort of like having eyes everywhere. That was just a thought from me.
I appreciate what you're saying. However, we are not making a whole lot of money at the moment. We're not even open on Mondays or Tuesdays because no one comes in. People only come in this pub when there's music playing. We can't afford door staff is the bottom line. We pay our rent, we pay our staff, we buy our supplies. We're not rolling in money by any stretch of the imagination running this pub. So we do have to economise, and door staff, in my opinion, are unnecessary because we have very little trouble here. And they're a luxury that we really can't afford.
Okay, that's fine. Thank you. I have no further questions, and thank you for answering my questions. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, councillors. I've got no further questions because mine have been asked. I will now ask the licensed team leader if she has any questions.
No, thank you, Chair.
No questions. The applicant, any questions?
Yes, please, Chair. Thank you.
Carry on.
Sorry, yes, thank you. A lot has been said about due diligence of residents moving into the area and moving into the vicinity of pubs that play live music. When you took on this license, it was you knew you were going into a grade 2 listed building with no soundproofing. And were you aware at the time when you went into the license that there was a condition that sought music from inside to be inaudible in noise sensitive properties. Were you aware
Yes,
of
I
that?
was. Yes, I was. But I was also aware that it's not a valid thing and cannot be enforced.
Did you seek any advice from environmental health or licensing about what levels of music, when you first moved in, would be appropriate?
No. Why would I? This place has been a music venue for decades. There would be no reason for me to, with absolutely no prompting or reason or motive, to go to environmental health and ask them for advice that I didn't need.
Okay, sorry, just 1 second.
Okay.
When live bands are playing, if we take the position that that you believe that that condition is dead, and that you believe there are no limits that are suitable or appropriate for measuring music, as we...
I didn't say that. You're misquoting me there. I didn't say there are no limits that are appropriate. I said there is no limit in law, which I was told by Stephen Ireland.
Yeah.
There is no limit in law. There's no. I'm not saying there is no such thing as an appropriate volume level. Of course there is. I mean, of course there's such a thing as too loud. But I just disagree that we've been hosting music that's too loud. I believe that previous owners of this establishment have been far more guilty of any noise nuisance than we currently are.
How have you personally then established what is too loud?
Well, I have an opinion, same as anyone else. If I think something sounds a bit loud, I think something sounds a bit loud. Surely your complaint is based on your opinion that we're too loud. So yeah, I have an opinion the same as anyone else. If I think something sounds a bit too loud, I mean, our bar staff, this is a very small bar. Our bar staff need to be able to hear what people are ordering. Customers need to be able to hear what the bar staff are saying to them. I mean, it would be ridiculous for us to play music at such a level that people can't order a drink.
Sorry, Chair, 1 second.
Anything else? Right, I was going to say anything else.
You say or that there are no limits in law, and as far as we understand that, there are no limits in a subjective assessment of noise by environmental health, but there is guidance about what is suitable for people that live in noise sensitive properties from the World Health Organization and DEFRA, where they recommend...
You keep quoting DEFRA. They're to do with rural affairs and food.
Yes, I understand that, but they have commissioned research.
We're not rural and we don't sell food.
They have commissioned research, sector-specific research, where they have set up regulated entertainment in research, and they've determined that, for example, 31 decibels in a bedroom is just about acceptable. The World Health Organization has determined that 30 decibels is acceptable. I guess what I'm trying to say is, without limits and without knowledge of limits that enable people to have some privacy and respect and a balance in the local community, how can you objectively determine what is too loud?
You can't. There's my answer. You can't. You can't objectively when the whole subject is subjective. There is no limit in law, therefore it is subjective.
Okay, thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Responsible authorities. So environmental health, do you want to ask any questions? No?
There we go. Sorry, I had trouble with my button then.
Okay, Jane.
I apologise. I do have a number of questions. I just wanted to have a point of clarity. I hope you don't mind me doing that.
Steve is the overall case officer for us as a responsible authority. We have a number of officers that took part in assessing the levels. It wasn't just the one. And these levels were looked at both externally and internally in a noise sensitive premises. And that's why we support the review undertaken by Respect Weymouth.
Thank you, Jane.
Another point of clarity, if you don't mind, children from harm. Children are harmed through lack of sleep, not just volume.
Not according to all the definitions I've read.
I appreciate that. However, there is medical evidence, and I'm sorry I can't quote it, I'm not a medical person, but it's one of the things that we do use in our subjective assessments. So we've been doing I personally have been an environmental health officer for over 30 years. I think Steve Ireland probably clocking something similar, and the other officers probably 10 plus years. So I don't think we're speaking out of turn by saying that children from harm is an element here. I'm not saying it's the element.
Can I comment?
Element. You can in a moment, Martin.
Sorry,
so
can I comment on that?
My question to you, Martin, is number one, who's in control of your premises when you are playing as far as noise is concerned? Because as a musician, I know you play at your premises.
Yeah.
So who's in control of the volume of noise when you are actually playing your instruments, please?
Myself and Christine Hearns, my partner, who's the licensee.
So does Christine go out with the sound level meter and test against yourself? And what levels are both you and Christine looking at when you're wandering with the sound level meter?
I have submitted evidence in the form of videos of my sound monitoring, which hopefully the councillors will have taken sight of. The suggested decibel level, which Stephen Ireland is saying that we should go out once an hour, each and every hour, to quote him, on the corner of Helen Lane, which is where Mr. Respect Weymouth lives. And we should take a reading which for 5 minutes should read 55 decibels or below. Now, I've submitted evidence that on a Sunday morning where the pubs are closed and there's nothing but people walking their dogs and the occasional car driving past, that a level as low as 55 is pretty much inachievable. And when on a Saturday night, it's never going to be below the 70s. It may dip below the 70s momentarily, but on average, we're looking at 70 decibels plus on a Saturday night, just wandering around this area with ambient noise.
So you choose 70 decibels to
I don't choose.
manage your levels?
No, I don't choose 70 decibels, no. It's just become apparent that that seems to be the average level around here just by wandering about with a decibel meter in my hand. No, I'm not choosing any specific decibel level at all, no. Okay. I literally go by what I think is reasonable. I take regular walks around the block. I pass other venues that are making far more noise than us, even when we have got live bands playing.
No further questions from myself, thank you.
Thank you very much, Jane. Right, that was responsible authorities. So thank you very much for that, Martin. Appreciate you answering the questions from everybody. I now have representations.
Chairman, sorry to interrupt you. I think you may possibly have questions from people who made reps. Just to check.
I'm just coming to that, Lara.
You're coming to that, lovely. Thank you very much. Thank you.
So I know I've got at least one question, but I will go down through the list. And I do believe the first person on that list is David Nunn. And David, do you want to say something?
Yes, thank you, Chair. It's more of a point of order to some extent, if you don't mind. I'm an acoustic engineer in the MOD, and I know how subjective measures of sound are from a scientific perspective. Subjective assessments are not proof. I thought that this is supposed to be an independent, unbiased investigation to consider if the claims of Respect Weymouth are correct or not. key word in that sentence is if. It is not yet proven. I'm very concerned that the questions from Councillor Les Fry and others to the licensee of the Duke of Cornwall have been very presumptive of guilt. They do not appear to be unbiased or independent. They appear to accept the claims of Respect Weymouth before they are proven. Why is this license review allowing such skewed questions that seem to assume that the claims of Respect Weymouth are already correct and proven when they are not? Over.
Thank you, David. I don't believe that is the case. I don't know if anybody else has got any views on that. Any of the other councillors got any views of that? But it's hearing all the evidence.
Could I comment?
No, hang on a minute. I'll just answer. It's hearing all the representations from people, and what we didn't want was a disrespectful hearing. So I don't believe what you're saying is absolutely right. No, we will consider everything when we go into exempt session later, and there is no predetermined course for this hearing. So I thank you for your comment, but I don't believe that's true.
Could I comment, please?
Mr. Rollins, you'd like to comment?
Yeah, I would just like to say that I wholeheartedly agree with what the gentleman has just said. We have been on the receiving end of apparent bias from the outset, and I mean since before there was ever a complaint. So I just like to say that I totally agree with what the gentleman has just said.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah,
Mr. Nunn, did you want to come back?
Yeah, thank you ever so much, Councillor John. I have to say, I think you should have been listening to what Councillor Les Fry said. It did seem as if he was just assuming it had already been proven that this establishment had breached all sorts of limits. It's not just a response to maybe the way this debate has been going. It's to do with the way the questions are worded. I happen to also be a trade union rep, and it's quite clear when questions are worded in a biased way that assumes guilt. I don't think that's acceptable in what is supposed to be an unbiased and independent review.
I'm sorry, Chair. I don't think any of my questions came across like that.
No, I don't concur. I have to say.
And I disagree. It's the style of the questioning and the combative approach of Mr. Rawlings that I was concerned about. We understand who Respect Weymouth are. We know who they are. We're not necessarily taking their side. We're here to, in an open and transparent view, to listen to all points of view.
Any other questions from, or any other comments from any of the other representations? So Cindy Ellery, any comments? Anne Newman, Lynn McKenzie, Simon Lister, Thomas de Brincat, Paul Avis. Paul Avis, have you got any comments?
Yes, thank you, John. So thank you all for allowing me to speak. And I think I speak for many members of the general public, both local and from the outside the area. The Duke is a great little gem of a public house, and its live music is why we're often drawn to this lovely place called Weymouth. It's great atmosphere, friendly staff, great proprietors, and most importantly, great music. The last year, 18 months have been extremely tough for the hospitality trade, and they are finding their feet again, trying to get customers in their premises, rebuild from before the pandemic. And it's not really helped by complaints from minorities seeking to cause trouble for pubs like the Duke, which will kill off what business they're trying to get back. While Stephen Ireland has been very clear on the process, the fear is, despite the assurances from Respect Weymouth, that if you let these complaints take hold, it will not stop at the Duke of Cornwall. The fear here is that Respect Weymouth will start on many other good pubs offering live music in and around the harbour, and before you know it, you will have killed off the livelihoods of more than just a couple of pubs. You will have allowed these individuals to drive Weymouth into a ghost town. In effect, we are not talking just about 6 people's livelihoods and the landlord and landlady's home, but the massive impact this judgment will have on the wider area. Weymouth and the Duke of Cornwall needs all the visitor and local business it can get in the current financial climate. Please take this into account because of the potential impact of a wrong decision. The question you must ask is, why do people buy a property in the very centre of Weymouth if they're not prepared to accept the lifestyle that goes with it? And it's very busy and it's a vibrant hospitality area. One piece of information missing from the Respect Weymouth survey of 12 households was how long people had been resident in the area. The landlord wrote, "Why move to a forest to chop down trees when you're there?" And I subscribe to this view. Why move to an area if you want to change it? Having personally been to the Duke for over 5 years, I've not seen a material change in noise levels since the new management team have been in place. In closing, this has been a fractious hearing, and I implore the representatives of Dorset Council to focus on the community benefit of the Duke of Cornwall, as evidenced by both the petition and the volume of representations made to this licensing committee. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Paul. That was very comprehensive. Right, I'm now going to give all parties the opportunity to sum up their case. I'm going to start with the licensee, Martin Rollins. Martin, I would really appreciate it if you didn't try to repeat too much of what you've said already, but if you'd like to sum up, you can go ahead now.
Okay, to sum up, I would like to say that the accusations levelled at us that we are creating a noise nuisance are false. I would like to also say that Respect Weymouth, having gathered minimal support, stand alone in complaining against us. This whole thing has been a vexatious attack from the word go, and we have been dealt with negative bias by Dorset Council from the outset. That's all I have to say.
Thank you very much, Martin. Appreciate that. Where was I going next? Is it the responsible authority? Have you got any summing up? Do you want to say anything, Jane or Stephen?
Yes, please. Thank you, Chair. My summary is one that can be said of any premises, basically. A premises can be as loud as it wants to internally, health and safety aside, as long as it's suitably controlled and mitigated against externally, so that it doesn't cause a public nuisance to neighbouring residents. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Jane. Appreciate that. I'd now go to the applicant.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I'd just like to summarise. I'm going to summarise and start where we started off with the presentation, and that our intention is we're not trying to close this or any other venue down. We are not trying to drive live music out of the area or the town, and this application is not limited to one person or a serial complainer or someone with frivolous or vexatious motivation. The council has validated the application as relevant. We believe that all our proposed conditions are relevant. It seems very clear to us that effective noise management will not happen without objective limits and places of measurement. There is a significant difference in the background levels Sunday to Thursday and Friday to Saturday. It seems clear that a single limit that is set to work at the loudest levels will reduce the level of statutory protection already provided in the week, and this could condone levels of noise that have recently been subjectively assessed as a statutory nuisance. If a limit is provided over and above background noise, it also seems clear that this will make escaping noise audible in the homes of nearby residents. Evidence has shown that full bands can operate here between 45 and 50 decibels. We urge the committee to consider the limits and our evidence, and provided that we urge the committee to consider our limits, and if provided, they do not weaken level of protection already provided, that they can differentiate between evidence-based differences in background noise, so limits are a fair reflection of escaping noise that can prevent public and statutory nuisance, and that any limits do not leave residents with inconsistent standards of noise that are dependent on a venue's ability to contain it rather than address the noise at source. And we would like to see average limits that are provided for normal noise being A-weighted for those 2 periods of time in the week, and we would like to see average limits that are C-weighted to deal with the excessive bass for those 2 limited times in the week as well. That's it, Chair. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Licensing team leader, is there anything you would like to sum up on?
No, thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you very much. Right, so I'm now going to ask Lara, have all relevant points been addressed?
Yes, Chairman, I think everything's been covered.
And satisfied that everybody's had their say?
You might want to just check if anybody else wants to make any further comment before you close, but I think you have probably covered everything.
Yeah, so has anybody else got anything to say before we go to a different session? Speak now or forever hold it. Right, I'm now going to tell you that in which case the public part of the meeting will now conclude. The subcommittee will consider its decision in private with the Democratic Services Officer in remote attendance and the legal advisor who may be called upon to offer legal guidance. The decision of the licensing committee shall be communicated to the parties and made available on the council's website as soon as practicable. Any party who wishes to appeal the decision has 21 days from the date of the receipt of the written decision notice to submit an appeal to Weymouth Magistrates Court. Everybody hear that and understand that? If I don't hear anything, I'll take that as a yes. So I'm going to propose that we go into exempt business now. Can I have a seconder? Councillor Les Fry. Okay, we're going to exempt business and we'll go back into the meeting we agreed on. Okay.
Thank you. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, thank you everybody for your attendance. Very interesting hearing. The first review I've been chair of. So thank you very much for everybody for your comments and your questions.